Today I wanted to give you some training on ETO to help you get ready to actually work with it. And so it's going to be a little bit of kind of down and dirty, give you the basics. There's a lot more to it, and I hope you will want to learn more about how ETO is going to work. But the first thing I wanted to do was to get you up and running. First thing, well, there are several things I wanted to talk to you about. First of all, I want to talk about getting around. I want to talk about the assessments or evaluations and how you do those. How do you bill for those evaluations? Number 4 is how do you do a service plan, or how do you find a service plan if you're working from it? Number 5 is to document the ongoing process, sort of the weekly meetings or monthly meetings that you might have with the participant. Number 6 is how to edit your work. And number 7 is how to review a participant's file to find out how they've been doing and what's been going on. So, first thing, getting around. There are a number of different ways that you can get around on ETO. The most complicated is the side navigation bar, but it has everything. And depending upon whether or not you're a site administrator, a staff, a department head, you will have different values along here. And if you click any of these, then there's a number of other choices, navigational choices. Another way that you can get around is by using the home page. We have a number of links on the home page so that you can get to different functions and different jobs that you need to do in ETO. Probably my favorite way of getting to something that I need is to start with a participant. Now in ETO we do use a lot of fake participants because we can pull them out at a later date. And so if you type a part of a person's name up here in this search, and if by chance it's not there, then click Quick Search and you can fill in the name there. Click Search and that pulls all of the people with that last name, or that at least the last name contains that. So this is a quick way. Then click on the participant that you might want to take a look at, and you get a drop down list from here as well. You can take a look at his dashboard. You can look at workflow, view or edit, record an effort, which is one thing we're going to be talking about today, view and record an assessment, which is another thing that we're going to be talking about today, review efforts, again today, and then you can look at his program history, when he was dismissed, notes by date and outcome, participants by group, that kind of thing. So this is my favorite way of getting around. Let's say that I was meeting with a participant and they were in the alcohol and drug program. Notice we are in mental health. First thing I would need to do is I would need to change programs. And you do that right up here in this section. Choose the program that you want from here, and ETO will take you to that program. Now the first thing that you need to do is to do an assessment or an evaluation. It might be a psychiatric evaluation, might be a clinical assessment. And so again, searching for the participant that you want, and I'm going to pick on let's pick on Billy, I guess, and I am going to view and record an assessment. That's what I want to do very first thing. When I do that, this brings me to Billy's assessment page. Here I can see all of the different assessments that he has taken. Now, in ETO, an assessment is a form that contains information, and an effort is work. And so there is this dichotomy between assessments and efforts. And so assessments in ETO mean other things besides just simply a clinical assessment. It can mean that. It can mean other forms like the ISSP, Individual Service and Support Plan, or behavioral contract, or in a psychiatric evaluation or release of information. A whole lot of things can be covered when we talk about an assessment in ETO. And so if perhaps Billy had already had a clinical assessment done, I could come here and take a look at it. This is the clinical assessment. Here's the date. Here's the staff who did it. You can click here and click Review, and this will then load the clinical assessment, the information from the clinical assessment, so that you can see it. If you scroll down, you can look at the different parts. This was somebody practicing, so it doesn't have a lot of it filled in. But even here, then, are the signatures you can see and the addendums. In order to get out of this and back to Billy's page, you click Continue. Let's assume I want to do a new assessment. So I will click Take New Assessment. When I click here, I have a number of possible assessments that I can do. Again, remember, assessment doesn't mean just simply a clinical assessment. But for this example, I'm going to choose the clinical assessment. Psychiatric evaluation is very similar, but let's choose the clinical assessment and click Continue. We have put an alert into the system that Billy Fake is allergic to penicillin, and so we see that alert. We go OK, and then it opens up for us the assessment. Notice that there are tabs across the top. You can click each tab. Unfortunately, we're going to get that pop-up every time, and it will take you to the next tab. One important thing to remember is that ETO will time out if you have not submitted anything for an hour. Now, unfortunately, typing doesn't count, only submitting. However, turning a page does count, and so you need to make sure you do something like turn a page or come down here and save as a draft or submit in order to keep ETO from timing out. So if I were going to be filling this out, I would go to the first page. I would then just begin filling out this assessment from the top, go through it, fill out all of the parts that are needed. Now, there is one interesting thing. For instance, is the individual under guardianship? There are a number of questions like this. For instance, there's a question about, is the person using substances, or is the person in danger of hurting themselves? And if you click yes on those, it tells you you need to complete the guardianship addendum. And lo and behold, if you then scroll over, there has been a tab added for guardianship. And so you would go through this, filling out everything that is needed. Anything that is yellow is required. Anything that is not yellow is optional. I'm going to submit this just so that you see what happens. And it tells me I need to put in an assessment date. So I go up here, and we can put in the date. You can make it whatever date you are doing the assessment. And then you click Submit again, and there may be a whole bunch of things that are required. If you're not able to complete the assessment at this time, then you can save it as a draft and come back and fill it in later. And so click Save Draft, and it will tell you that your assessment information was saved as a draft in the system. And here you can then scroll through and see everything that you answered or did not answer. Click Continue, and you are back to Billy Fake's assessment page. And now under Clinical Assessment, we have a new assessment. We actually have two of them because I clicked the button twice. Last updated 8/22, but I had entered 1/12/97. Okay? So that's how you would fill out an assessment. Remember, I said an assessment is information, effort is work. We don't bill for information, but we do bill for work. So we need to now bill for this assessment. And this, what I'm going to show you now, is unique to the first assessment, unique to the assessment itself. We fill out a special note for that. Again, we can search, or if you've already searched for the person, often their name will drop down. And now we are going to record an effort. And we are going to do an assessment note for billing. So we click on that and click submit. And now we can fill this out. Again, anything that is in yellow is required. Anything that is white is not required. If you decide to put in a date of next contact, date of next contact down here, this will be added to your to-do list, which you can find up here. My suggestion in the beginning is not to do that until you are really ready to use the to-do list and know what it actually will do. It sets an alert for you on your to-do list, and if you're not careful, you can find yourself overwhelmed. But of course, put in today's date, time spent. Let's say we spent an hour and 15 minutes, which would be 75 minutes. If the participant was there, you check yes for the value. Fill in the program code, and this will be different for different offices. Fill in the diagnosis code, and on this, on the assessment note for billing, the diagnosis code is required. Which I think is the correct code for no diagnosis or unknown at this time. Procedure was an assessment. Type of contact was individual present on site. If you chose any of these others, like individual not present on site with others present, then you would fill in the contact explanation. We fill in our initials, and then we can save the effort. If there are any notes that you want to add, you can do that in that space right there. And it's going to ask you, do you know that this is optional and do you want to do it again? And I would recommend ignore. Okay. Save effort and close. And now this effort has been entered into the system. If you want to check that, you can go to Home Page. Right here across the top are some important links. Edit my work, today's date, click submit, or you could search by the participant as well, and there is the effort that I just did. Notice it does not show the assessment, because assessment is not work, remember? Alright, so we've done the assessment, we have billed for the assessment. We now need to do the service plan, or the ISSP. ISSP is considered an assessment because it is collecting a lot of information and making a plan. You bill for the ISSP either by doing it at the same time you do the assessment, and so it's included in the assessment note for billing, or you do it during a regular visit, and if you do that, then you do a regular note and include the billing for the ISSP in that note. But for now, I'm going to show you how to do an ISSP. I'm not going to use Billy again because I don't want that alert to keep coming up, so we'll pick John. Now we're going to go back to view and record an assessment. Again, we are at John's assessment page. It does look like he has already had an ISSP, which we could then review if we wanted to. We also could update it, and if I click update, then I can work on it, but when I save it, then I would be the one that was listed as the staff, and today's date would be the last updated date. I'm going to do a new assessment, a new ISSP, individual service plan. Notice There are several different kinds of ISSPs here. There is the ISSP, ISSP additional goals, ISSP medication only, and an ISSP review revision. The review revision is done later on in treatment when you're coming back and wanting to formally review the ISSP and mark things as either complete or continued, and then you can then add new goals at that time. The ISSP medication only is primarily used for medication management, and that is an ISSP built around the need for maintaining medication, and a lot of the goals and outcomes are already built for you, and you can check off what you want to accomplish with the participant. The ISSP additional goals is a form you use to add more than one goal. Our ISSP only has one goal, and that it has the opportunity to put two measurable outcomes, and under that you can put, then I think it's 3 interventions. And so if you want more than one goal, you have to do an ISSP additional goal sheet. The goal sheet is exactly the same as the ISSP, except it does not have the initials or the signatures, and so it's designed to be done in conjunction with an ISSP. The additional goal sheet is not designed to stand on its own. So we'll click the ISSP and click Continue. Here at the top you have the assessment identifier. This is just used to help us keep track of what's going on. For instance, perhaps this participant had been gone for a while, and this is an ISSP to now reestablish service, and so I might put down to reestablish. But you can put anything you want to in there that helps you remember, so that as when you're looking through the list of the ISSPs, you have some idea what's going on there. Also, you might put down what program this is for, because the efforts, because their work, are very directly tied to the programs. The assessments are not. The assessments actually can be seen from any program as a general rule. Every once in a while there's an exception, but as a general rule, assessments can be seen from any program. So you might put an assessment identifier. They ask for some dates here that you can fill in, and then they ask for a goal, and this would be goal number 1, and the start date would probably be today, and a little trick is that you can actually start typing and it will fill it in, and it wants you to now link this to the prioritized assessed need on the assessment. Let's assume it was need number 1, and then when was that assessment done? And this is just an example, so I will just say, let's assume it was in June. Tab 25, tab 2013. And it was a clinical assessment. Now we put down what is the goal. Well, I won't tell you clinically how to fill out an ISSP. I just simply want to point out that here's where you put the goal, here's where you put the strengths and the skills that support this goal, things that could get in the way of achieving it, and now you come to the measurable or observable outcome. This would be number 1 for goal number 1. That's already been filled in. What is the outcome you're desiring? Perhaps the goal is to remain sober, and so maybe the outcome would be to learn the skills necessary to maintain a sober lifestyle. And so then you could fill in the individual is willing to. If you have a parent or guardian, then you can add their contribution there. And then what are the interventions. Well, maybe you might have the person attend groups. Then you would fill out a better description of what those groups are. Duration is how long? 6 weeks. Frequency, 2 times a week. And so 2 times 6 is 12 sessions. And then who's responsible? Normally we would just put LCS staff, unless this was the kind of thing that needed to be done by, say, a QMHP, or needed to be done by a licensed psychiatrist, or that kind of thing. If there is a requirement of the level of this person's credentials, then you can put that in there. Again, you've got you can do outcome number 2 with the interventions down here. And then at the bottom, there are the signatures. On an ISSP, the individual needs to sign it, the provider needs to sign it, and the supervisor needs to sign that as well. I am not going to explain about the electronic signing at this point in time. We then would submit it or save it as a draft. We get the notification that it's been submitted. Again, we can take a look at what we've filled in, click continue, and we are back on the assessment page for John Fake. So we've talked about how to get around in ETO. We've talked about doing the assessment, how to bill for that assessment. Now we've just finished talking about where the service plan is and how to fill that out. And now I want to talk about documenting ongoing sessions. And so again, I always start with the search, drop down menu, and we are going to record an effort. This is the way we got to the assessment note for billing. However, since this is going to be an ongoing note, a progress note of our meeting with a participant, we'll choose something different. So we will not choose the assessment note for billing. We have a number of options. If you were doing groups, you would choose some of the group options. Or if you were doing a UA, a year analysis, you'd choose that. But today, one of the ones that we use very often is the individual and family therapy note. So I'm going to open that up. Again, everything that's yellow is required. White is not required to submit it. However, there are some very important things on here, and so I would recommend that you do spend some time trying to do a good job of documenting what you've done, especially this part here. What are the goals and the outcomes that you addressed that were on the ISSP? And what were the exact interventions? You know, you might not just say that you talked for an hour, but maybe you could say that you used motivational interviewing, you used some psychoeducation, actually use the interventions or methods that were used. Then how did the participant respond? What was their response? What is the action plan between now and our next session? Enter your initials, and then you would save effort and close. I'm not going to do that. I'm actually going to go to the home page. And this is something to maybe keep in mind. If you ever need to get out of something, you realize you need to go do something else and you don't want to save it. You don't want it to get recorded. If you then simply go somewhere else without hitting this save effort and close, ETO will ask you if you want to leave this page, and you say yes, leave this page, and now that effort is gone. Often that can be a good thing because we got out of something we didn't want to be recorded. Sometimes it's a bad thing because if you leave the page and you wanted it to be saved, it isn't there. Again, If you need to edit your work, you would go right here to edit my work. But what if you had a participant and you wanted to see how they were doing? You wanted to take a look at what had been going on for them. Well, the way to do that is to review the service file right here. You then put the participant's name in here, and you can then hit enter or hit go. However, what if you had a participant that had already been dismissed? Maybe they were dismissed a few days ago, but then you realized you needed to go back and to add a note or to add a status report or something like that. If you want to include the dismissed participants, you click here. This notice comes up that says this will allow you to work with dismissed participants. You click OK, and now you click Go. ETO in the beginning asks you a whole lot of questions for some reason. I think it's trying to learn how you work and then get it set up that way. I mostly like to not have it tell me things or not have it remind me of things. Here then are the participants. Unfortunately, I don't know who has a good file here. Well, I think Billy might. So let's take a look at Billy. And then you can choose the dates of the assessment, or you can, choose the dates for the services that you want to review, or you can select all dates. Tells you if you select all dates, it's going to give you a lot of information, and it will take a long time to load. You can go ahead and click yes, that's fine, and submit. Then the review service file is opened, and I want to show you a few things here. First of all, here is the date range that we're looking at, and here's the program that we're looking at. Now perhaps you have a participant and they're in several programs, and you'd like to see how they're doing in not just the program that you're in at the moment, but you want to see site-wide how they're doing. If you choose site as the scope, this will then reload and we'll have all of the efforts across the whole site. Now the number of efforts didn't change. You may not have noticed that, but it didn't. So Billy Fake only has efforts in this program. Here are some somewhat interesting statistics. You can look at those if you'd like, but here is the meat of the review service file. It's down here in the detailed statistics. If you click all, then you're able to see all of the efforts that have been done. And they are listed by type, participant point of service elements, and composite point of service elements. So the first listed by type, and then within the type they're listed by alphabetical. They're listed by the alphabet. So you have the assessment note for billing, the individual skills training note, individual family and therapy note, group note, etc. Okay? Down at the very bottom, you then can see other things. You can see if there have been any employment placements, educational placements, any referrals, and any assessments that have been done, along with the dates when they were last updated. And from here, from this review service file, if you need to update any of these, you can click update and it will take you to that assessment, or you can view it. However, if you want to take a look at the actual sort of day-to-day interactions that Billy has had, these would happen more up in this area under participant point of service elements. Notice over here on the right it says effort qualifiers. If you click view, that will open it up and you will be able to see the details of that interaction. This in some sense is where the meat of the meat of the interaction is kept. As you can see, since this is a fake participant, not a lot has been filled in. A lot of the normal things, like the procedure codes and the type of contact and the initials, but no real notes have been kept. But here, if there had been notes, they would be in this under the effort qualifiers. And so this is the way that you then can review a person's file, can get an idea of how they've been doing. So we've talked about getting around, how to find your way around in ETO. We've talked about doing the assessments or the evaluations, billing for that evaluation, doing or looking at the service plan, documenting your ongoing sessions, editing your work, and now how to review a person's service file. This, I think, brings us to the end of what I wanted to cover today. I will say one more thing, and that is that if you notice, there is a little icon up here that says print results. So if you had to send a report to someone, or if a participant wanted a report of their own files, you could print this out for them, and notice when it prints out, there is an opportunity for you to sign it and the client to sign it and date it. And then this could be a record of their treatment with you. Thanks. With this, I hope you can get in there and begin to do some work in ETO. If you have questions, there is a help button up here at the top. This will then take you to ETO's help site. And if you have a particular question, you can, like for instance, if you're really interested in how do you enroll a participant in your program, you can type enroll, and you will get a number of search results. Some of them are helpful, some of them are not. But this one here about enrolling a participant would tell you how to enroll that participant. So this help site can be very helpful. Again, from ETO, upper right hand corner, and click help. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your time and your attention today.